Following the Season 2 finale of the Rebels TV series, which culminated in the riveting duel between Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano, the fate of Ahsoka was unknown, leaving many fans to speculate whether the former Padawan survived or was killed by her former master. Initially, given God Emperor Filoni's comments pertaining to Ahsoka and the outcome of the duel between the one-time master and Padawan, it appeared that there was a strong possibility that she did not survive, and that there would be no further appearances by her on Rebels. However, more recently, the God Emperor has intimated that it is likely that Ahsoka will be seen and included in future episodes, leaving many to anticipate that she will return to the series as a Force ghost. In this video expose, I will describe how Ahsoka could return to Rebels as a Force ghost given everything that was learned from Season 6 of the Clone Wars TV series in regard to unlocking the secret to manifesting one's consciousness as a Force ghost after death. It was initially likely that Ahsoka wouldn't just not return as a Force ghost to Rebels, but that she wouldn't return to the series in any form. Immediately after the airing of the Season 2 finale, when asked about the fate of Ahsoka after her duel with Vader, Filoni stated, "I've already been devising certain specifics around the future of that character. Where she is, what's happening, if she dies, how she would survive if she did, all those questions. I think they eventually need to be answered, but I wouldn't look to that, frankly, anytime soon." When you add that quote to Filoni's answer from another interview regarding whether or not Ahsoka lived through her duel with Vader, it becomes even more evident that at the time the Season 2 finale aired, Filoni was not going to have Ahsoka return to Rebels, and therefore not have Ahsoka return as a Force ghost in the series. Filoni stated, "I would just say, there are probably more stories to tell with Ahsoka Tano, but I would not believe that that would happen necessarily on Star Wars Rebels. I've been wrong in the past, but I think that she had served the part of the story that she needed to for our characters here. I think there are still more stories to be told. I think there are stories to be told prior to Rebels with her. I think there are a lot of stories that happened right at the end of the Clone Wars that we're unaware of yet. It's one of those mysteries then where maybe, beyond hope, maybe there is a future." Clearly, Filoni was heavily leaning in the direction of not having Ahsoka return to Rebels. So if Filoni was seemingly at the position that Ahsoka would very likely not return to the Rebels TV series, and that most of her stories would be situated within the timeline prior to Rebels, why even speculate if Ahsoka will return in Rebels as a Force ghost? Between the end of Season 2 of Rebels and Star Wars Celebration earlier this past summer, it appears that Filoni changed his opinion regarding the potential for the return of Ahsoka to the show and what it might mean. At the Rebels Season 3 panel, when asked whether Ahsoka survived her duel with Vader, this time Filoni answered, "It's likely that you might not have seen the last of Ahsoka Tano." While still somewhat vague, this was a fairly significant change from his earlier statements that any future Ahsoka stories were not likely to be on Rebels. Further, at the Ahsoka's Untold Tales panel, Filoni hinted again that it was possible that Ahsoka would be returning to the series. Even more importantly, he hinted that Ahsoka's return to Rebels shouldn't be taken that she survived her duel with Vader, but that it might be possible to see her again. Can't assume she survived? Might be possible to see her again? Sounds like we have all the ingredients for Ahsoka's return as a Force ghost. But anyone who saw the final arc of Season 6 of the Clone Wars knows that one does not simply become a Force ghost. There are rules to the whole manifesting one's consciousness after death endeavor. And if we assume that Ahsoka learned the secret to becoming a Force ghost in the same way that Yoda did in the Clone Wars TV series, I think that we would be incorrect, and could agree that the methods through which Yoda learned to become a Force ghost would not be available to Ahsoka. In case you missed the arc, Yoda learned the secret to becoming a Force ghost after Qui-Gon Jinn, as a disembodied voice, instructed Yoda to travel to a planet that was the origin of all life in the galaxy. We learned from Qui-Gon that Yoda was chosen to learn the secret of preserving his life force, in order to communicate with the living after death. Because Yoda had no knowledge of this planet, Qui-Gon told him to allow the Force to be his guide in bringing him to it, which Yoda did. Importantly, This Force planet was located in the heart of the galaxy within a glowing golden nebula, and it was not marked on any star map. Therefore, as instructed by Qui-Gon, Yoda used the Force to ultimately journey to the Force planet. Once on the planet, Yoda encountered the 5 Force priestesses, who told him that it was his destiny to learn the secret to manifest his consciousness after death from them. Deemed worthy of the secret, due to his future of training someone who would save the universe from a great imbalance, Yoda was put through a number of tests by the priestesses to ultimately achieve the ability to manifest himself as a Force ghost, which included abandoning and overcoming his fear that was still present within him and rejecting temptation. Therefore, as demonstrated in Season 6 of the Clone Wars, there was a specific process in which Yoda learned the secret and was able to become a Force ghost. But this process is very unlikely to be available to Ahsoka. The Force planet, the home world of the Force priestesses, was unknown to every Jedi. Even Yoda had never heard of it, and was only able to find it after being informed by Qui-Gon, and using the Force to specifically locate it once he already knew what he was looking for. As was seen in the novel Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston, Ahsoka was not going to be able to get anywhere near the Force planet after Order 66. As it was stated, she also couldn't go anywhere in the core. Even the inner rim would be too exposed. She couldn't risk it. Her life as a Jedi meant she knew too many people there. Therefore, it's very unlikely that Ahsoka would find the Force planet on her own, and even if she in some way found the Force planet through the Force, which no Jedi other than Qui-Gon had done previously, it's not likely that she would have made it there safely, which even she understood. Further, Yoda's journey to the Force planet had a sense of destiny behind it, wherein he was chosen to learn the secret by traveling to the planet and learning directly from the Force priestesses. Even if Ahsoka somehow made it there against all of the odds stacked against her in regards to the obstacles of both knowledge and the Empire, it still isn't clear that the priestesses would teach her the secret. So then I guess that settles it. With no way to travel to the Force planet to learn the secret to becoming a Force ghost after death from the priestesses, Ahsoka won't be returning to the Rebels TV series as a Force ghost. Well, not quite, as there's still one more way that Ahsoka could have learned the secret prior to her duel with Vader. That is, to learn the secret directly from Obi-Wan, or similarly, to learn from Obi-Wan, just as he learned from Yoda, how to communicate with Qui-Gon, so that he could guide her through the process of learning how to manifest herself as a Force ghost. But this would require Ahsoka to have to learn first that Obi-Wan was still alive when she was certain of his death following Order 66, and second, to discover his secret location of Tatooine. Fortunately for Ahsoka, there is an individual in the galaxy who did know both of these pieces of information, Bail Organa. And as was established in the novel Ahsoka, Ahsoka both meets Bail and begins working within his early and emerging rebellion only 1 year after Order 66. It's this connection that Ahsoka has with Bail, which would have gone on for roughly 15 years prior to her duel with Darth Vader, that leads me to strongly believe that Bail will ultimately inform Ahsoka about Obi-Wan surviving Order 66 and his presence on Tatooine, thereby allowing her to learn how to become a Force ghost after death. Here's why. Immediately upon learning that Ahsoka was alive, roughly 1 year after Order 66, Bail almost let out a shout of pure triumph, and indicated that while he had a closer relationship with both Anakin and Obi-Wan, he knew exactly who she was, and her connection to those two Jedi. After learning that Ahsoka survived, Bail did reiterate to himself that he couldn't reach out to Obi-Wan on Tatooine, as it would risk both Luke and Leia, and therefore, his discretion in not revealing Obi-Wan to Ahsoka took precedence. Even prior to his first encounter with Ahsoka, Bail concluded that he owed Luke and Leia his silence, and that he would not tell her about Obi-Wan, and ultimately, he didn't. However, it's interesting to note that right from the beginning, Bail struggles with the idea of informing Ahsoka about Obi-Wan surviving, and deeply understands the benefit of telling Ahsoka this information, let alone the fairness in just allowing Ahsoka to know the truth of the matter. It's clear that the only thing holding Bail back in telling Ahsoka is the protection of Luke and Leia's future. But it's very difficult to imagine, based upon Bail's earliest instincts and knowledge of the situation, that as the years pass, as Luke and Leia get older and the relationship between Bail and Ahsoka solidifies and trust is formed, that Bail doesn't at some point inform Ahsoka that Obi-Wan is alive on Tatooine. One becomes even more confident of this after considering that it was demonstrated that Bail was very calculating in sounding Ahsoka out right from the beginning, in wondering how much she knew, and being quite sure himself that Ahsoka knew the true nature of Anakin and Padme's relationship. Another interesting point from the novel Ahsoka that leads me to strongly believe that Ahsoka will discover Obi-Wan is alive and present on Tatooine is Bail's actions during the second face-to-face meeting between himself and Ahsoka. When Ahsoka asked Bail whether he worried about running a rebellion while he still had a young daughter, Bail could not help himself in putting it out there that she was, quote, already a lot like her mother. Bail stated it as a test, and Ahsoka took it as precisely that, to see if she knew that Padme was Leia's mother. Of course, Ahsoka did not know the answer to the test, and they both silently allowed it to pass. But again, we see Bail desperately trying to bring Ahsoka into the greater picture and events that are ongoing, although with the greatest of caution. This exchange also brings up the possibility that Bail's question may have planted a seed in Ahsoka's mind that would allow her to eventually put the pieces together to understand that Leia is the daughter of Anakin and Padme, thereby bringing her into the greater endgame through Bail. But at the very least, by connecting with Bail only a year after Order 66, and given all of Bail's clear desires to let Ahsoka know about Obi-Wan surviving from the moment he first realized Ahsoka was alive, not to mention the fact that Obi-Wan may too benefit from knowing Ahsoka survived, it's very difficult to imagine that at some point between the 15 years of Ahsoka joining Bail's emerging rebellion and her duel with Vader, that Bail doesn't let Ahsoka know that Obi-Wan is alive. And once Ahsoka discovers that Obi-Wan is present on Tatooine through Bail, this would allow her to learn the secret to manifesting her consciousness after death by being guided by either Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon, thereby setting the stage for her return as a Force ghost in Rebels. Although there may be a valid concern about having too many Jedi becoming Force ghosts, particularly if it's used as a way to bring back favorite characters, I do think that it works here for Ahsoka. She would only be the 5th Jedi to learn the secret within the new canon. But more interesting in my opinion is the fact that if Ahsoka became a Force ghost, it would create a nice chain of connected masters and apprentices who would have learned the secret, with Ahsoka apprenticed to Anakin, who was apprenticed to Obi-Wan, who was apprenticed to Qui-Gon. And if we discount Qui-Gon's master Dooku, who fell to the dark side, we can add Dooku's master Yoda to that chain as well. Regardless, it'll be interesting to see if Ahsoka does indeed return to Rebels as a Force ghost, and what role she would ultimately play. So there we have it, how Ahsoka could return to the Rebels TV series as a Force ghost. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for standing out from the crowd. Alright, we'll do the Rey puzzle this time. I would have went with the second Kylo Ren puzzle, but it is 3 against 1. Now guys, can we agree not to waste time on this one? Let's focus on assembling the border first, then working our way in. No, Vader, I don't want to hear your theory about how Rey's your granddaughter again. No, I haven't heard from Bane yet. And I wouldn't call it a disappearance. We don't know for sure what happened. But I'm sure Bane will turn up soon. Don't worry, I'll get it. I wonder who that could be. Hello? Bane? Oh, it's a handwritten note. Non-Canon Expert. This is only the beginning. they'll all be replaced soon enough. P.S. Can you do a video addressing whether Kylo Ren will be redeemed like Vader by Episode 9? I've been wondering about that. P.S.S. Replaced? Yeah, I guess I could do that. I mean, they could have asked a bit nicer. And I wonder who they is. What does "they'll all be replaced" mean? What do you guys think?